color. It tastes like onion. You behind the scenes.
B-roll.
I don't know how to cut without a cutting board. I just kind of, I mean, I do it, but
Yeah.
it's not my natural instinct.
Cutting in thin air.
And you just cut them in half, or just like that?
Just like this, I like that one.
The lentil stew can also be cooked for breakfast. Some people like savory breakfast, so it's up to you. Either way,
Yeah.
it's a good protein source regardless.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. So we'll show you how we make it. It's not the only way to do it, but it's easy,
Yeah.
right? And
We're-
that's what we're trying to do. So
We're
We're
going
gonna-
to we're going to start with the lentil stew because we're going to show you how, and we're going to leave time for it to actually cook. And then while the lentil stew is cooking, we'll be showing you the other two items. One of the things that are most interesting to learn about the lentil stew or any stew is the way that you prepare your onions. Most people usually fry their onions to saute them with oil before they make whatever they're making with the onions. How many of you fry your onions or have fried your onions before? Okay, so we're going to learn how to water saute. That means that we're going to cook the onions and we're going to use water instead of oil, but it's still going to have the same type of effect than as if we were cooking it with oil. Okay, is it already on?
no.
Okay,
So
so that
just take
needs to
the
be.
pot off.
Okay. So you're going to take your pot and you're going to put it directly onto your heat source, okay? Your stove top or your, whoops, is this thing going to blow up at me? With nothing in it, okay? No oil, just a little bit of water. You can see, actually, it shouldn't even have this little bit of water yet. Okay, so it should be a dry pot, and you're going to put it on your heat source and let the pot get hot. This is the trick to water to test it. It's already starting to get a little hot. So what I use, we're using a big pot today because of the volume of lentils that we're using. Usually if you're just making it for your family, you could use a smaller pot and it's probably easier to handle. So what I usually do is I take just a little bit of water and I test it. Kind of splash it on the pot. And once the water kind of evaporates and creates little beads or little balls and they start kind of rolling, then I know it's hot enough that I can put my onion in there. So right now I'm just testing it. Not quite hot enough yet, but it's getting there. So it starts to create like a little sizzle and it kind of does that back. Okay, can you guys see it? Okay, so I'm just testing it. And now it's already rolling. See the little balls? I don't know if you're able to see the little balls that are already rolling at the bottom. Kind of like little beadlets of water. See that? It's like the water is dancing. Now it's hot enough. So I'm going to add just a little bit of water. There you go. Very little. And I'm going to add my diced onions. Woo! They're just onions that have been diced or chopped. Ideally, do we have a lid? Do we have a lid? Okay. We're going to pour, I forgot to ask about the lid because that's crucial. And
a lid for that pot?
I'm basically going to have all my onions in there and stir it a little bit. And then I'm going to add the salt. That's kind of the trick to this, is adding the salt so that when you add salt to onions and a little bit of heat and just that little bit of water, it's going to cause the onions to sweat. And the onions will release their juices, and then you don't need the oil. But you do need a lid to the pot. Do we have a lid? Do we have a lid?
We're getting one.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. And so you're just water sauteing. and you're going to stir it. There's not a lot of water in it. There's maybe like 2 tablespoons or 3 of water, and you would put a lid on this. The lid is going to trap the heat, and it's going to create steam, and it's going to cook the onions with hardly any water. And it's going to have the same effect as if you were going to cook it with oil, but with no oil, which is much healthier. Ideally, we don't want to fry or cook with oil at all. If you are choosing to use some oil, it's always best to use the oil raw, outside of cooking, never heating the oil, okay? For lentil stew or any stew, you don't need any oil. You might choose to use a little bit of oil, maybe in your salad, or maybe in something like cooked veggies that are just drizzled on top, or no oil at all. But you definitely don't need oil to saute your onions, okay? So I'm basically just, there's already too much water in there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. Just that little bit that I put. So I'm just sauteing the onions a little bit until they're soft, just like you would with oil, except no oil. And then I'm going to add my seasonings. So the seasonings that we're going to use today for our lentil stew is cumin, ground coriander, and turmeric in powder form. Okay? These, perfect, that's good. Yeah, okay. These seasonings are seasonings that are made from herbs or plants that will not heat, okay? Meaning they're not going to cause any inflammation or any irritation in our gastrointestinal tract. And that's the goal. We shouldn't use spices that are harmful to our intestinal tract. So, for example, no cooking with cayenne, no cooking with black pepper, no cooking with ginger, because those are hot and they will create inflammation. Now, those things that I mentioned, the cayenne and the ginger, can be used as remedies, but it's for therapeutic purposes only, for medicine, not with your everyday cooking, so that you don't create inflammation in your gastrointestinal tract, okay? So we're going to go ahead, and you can see the onions are cooking very well with no oil. I don't know if you can see that. And it just has very minimal water in there. It actually has too much water, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and add the cumin. Okay, not measuring, but if you, I don't know how you guys cook, but now turmeric is a powerful anti-inflammatory. So if you have any kind of joint issues or inflammation in your system, arthritis, bursitis, tendonitis, any of the itises, then you're able to use turmeric, and it's a very healthy addition. So once it starts to add the spices, I'm going to add a little bit more water, just so that the spices mix into the onion nicely. Is there a cloth?
Yeah, right here.
Oh yeah, but you're, no, I would add the tomato first. Tomato, so that it's creating this. So then once you have your seasonings like this, let me see if I can show you. Once you have your seasonings in there like this, you're going to add chopped tomato, so diced tomato, and in dice them small so that it will create a nice sauce. And the tomatoes alone are going to already release their juices, and they're going to be, again, making a nice base for your stew, okay? Tomatoes, especially when you cook tomatoes, they have lycopene. And now we're just going to go ahead and add the chopped carrots, and they can be cut to whatever size that you like. Here we've left them fairly large so that they could be some nice bite-sized chunks. Once they're in the pot, we're going to go ahead and just stir it all in so that the juices from the tomatoes and the cooked onions could mix nicely and help to soften the carrots before we add the water. So we're going to go ahead and just stir it well.
Yeah, and you don't have to add carrots either. Carrots is a nice touch. It makes it a little bit different. So you can add carrots if you want, or you don't have to add them.
Okay, so once the carrots are in the pot and they've been well stirred, we're going to prepare our lentils. Now, for this lentil stew, we're using red split lentils, and that means that there's no skin involved. So because there's no skin on the lentils, they actually take less time to cook and to prepare.
And this is what the package looks like in most supermarkets. It's red Masuri dal, red lentils.
And because these lentils are split, they don't need soaking time like most beans or legumes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rinse them. So we're going to take some fresh water and just pour it into the pot with enough water to cover the lentils. Once we have the water in, I'm going to just show you. You're going to have enough to cover the lentils, a good amount, and we're going to just rinse and wash the lentils. I'm going to use my hand, and I'm going to just kind of
stir the lentils.
Stir the lentils a little bit so that whatever scum or dirt or impurities are in the lentils can get washed off. And you're going to notice that the lentils have kind of created a cloudy water. And we can let them sit for a little bit, and then basically we're going to just drain that water, rinse them out. So we're going to, if I had a sink, I would pour it right into the sink, but we can use this bowl, and we're going to just pour out the water from the rinsed lentils.
So we're just checking on the vegetables now in the pot, so they're steaming nicely. And the flavors that we put in there, the seasonings are mixing well with the tomatoes and the carrots, and so they're getting the seasoning kind of into them as they cook.
And so once we've poured the water out of the pot with the lentils, we're just going to drain them well and let them sit. Now you could let them sit with water while you're doing the other things, but you can go ahead and drain them and it'll be ready to be used right away. Now the next step we do have to keep checking that the vegetables don't stick, because remember, we're not using any oil. We keep covering it with the lid so that the steam that's created from the cooking vegetables are going to keep everything moist and prevent it from sticking. So we're going to stir it and make sure that things are not sticking and mixing well. And once it's got a good amount of stirring done, we're going to add some water, enough water to be able to cover the lentils afterwards. So we're pouring some water. The amount will be dependent on the amount of lentils that you're cooking. Since we're cooking about 3 kilos of lentils, we want to make sure that there's enough water, and I'm going to stir it so that it's mixing all the flavors and all the seasonings get mixed into the water well. And then we're going to cover it with the lid and just let it come to a rolling boil. Once the water comes to a rolling boil, we're going to add the lentils into it, and then we're going to allow it to cook. We're going to reduce the heat.
All right, so how many people have tried oatmeal before or had oatmeal? Maybe some of you have. But we're going to make some oatmeal here, and it's very, very simple to do. This is the package of oatmeal that I found in the supermarket, and it's just flat oat flakes that you can use. There is a quick oats, but the flat oats makes a nicer oatmeal. It takes a little bit longer to cook, but it certainly makes a very nice oatmeal. So we just empty the package into the pot, and then we're going to add enough water to cover the oatmeal. We don't want to have a pot full of water, and then the oatmeal is very soupy. We want to have a nice thick oatmeal when we cook it. So we're going to add just enough water that covers the oatmeal maybe by an inch or so. And then you can see me pouring the water in. And just keep some water by. You'll stir up the oats, and then you'll get a feel for how thick it is. And once you stir it up, then you'll get a sense of the thickness, and you can either add more water or just let it boil. I'm just going to add a little bit more water here just to make sure. As it cooks, it's going to get thicker anyways. So we're cooking it on a charcoal cooker, and so it may take a little bit more time to warm up than on a normal stove. But if you are using a charcoal cooker, certainly it works, and if it's really nice and hot when you put it on, then it's going to be no problem. So while that's cooking, I also tend to add 1 can of coconut milk to it. This is coconut milk that you can buy in the store, and there's several different brands. You got to make sure that you get coconut milk and not coconut cream. The coconut cream is going to be very thick. So this is actually, I'm going to use this coconut to make the chia pudding. So while the while the oatmeal is cooking, we're going to make the chia pudding in between there. So I'm going to use a couple of cans of coconut. You can use 1 to 1. So 1 can of coconut milk to 1 can of water. And so it looks like I'm going to use 3 cans here just to make enough so that everyone can taste. And so we'll end up using probably about 2.5 to 3 cans of water as the chia starts to set. So here we've got a package of chia seeds. You can buy them at the market. They're probably a little bit less expensive because you can buy it more in bulk. But that's the package that we got from the store. And so that's what we're going to use. You can buy it in most supermarkets. Not all of them have it, but usually it's about 1 can of coconut milk to 8 tablespoons of chia seeds. And as you make it, you'll get a feel for how thick you want to make it and how thick it is. I've made it so many times, I'm not really measuring with a tablespoon here, but I'm using this big mixing spoon to put the chia in. As I mix it, I'll get a sense of how thick it's going to be, and then I'll be able to either add more chia or add more water, depends how thick. It does take a little bit of time for it to thicken up, so stir in the chia seeds, make sure they're all coated with the coconut milk, and then just let it sit. It's going to take a few minutes. Here I'm throwing in a little bit more chia because I want to make sure that it gets nice and thick.
And another tip that you can, just like a fun fact about chia, is that you can use chia to replace eggs in baking. So 1 tablespoon of chia to 3 tablespoons of water would easily replace 1 egg in your baking. You can either use chia or flax seeds the same way. If you grind them, they won't be with such a grainy texture. So you can either grind the flax seeds or grind the chia seeds and use 1 tablespoon of the ground flax or chia to 3 tablespoons of water. And you put that in a little cup, mix it in, and let it set. And after a few minutes, maybe about 5 minutes, you're going to have a nice gel or a flax egg or chia egg to replace 1 full egg in your baking. And now we're just going to check on our lentil stew to make sure that things are going well and that the heat is not too high. And we're going to stir it. Make sure the flavors, you can probably smell it. It smells wonderful, but it's not boiling yet, so we're not going to add the lentils. I'm going to put the lid back on so that it traps the heat and allows it to boil.
So in the process, I've been keeping an eye on the oatmeal, and here I've opened a can up. And so I'm just going to take this can and I'm going to add it to the oatmeal mix. And the addition of the coconut milk into the oatmeal makes it very nice and creamy, gives it a lovely flavor and texture, and it just makes it really smooth and tastes very nice.
And so just a side note that when you're cooking grains, that you have to make sure that they cook for a long enough period of time. Spirit of Prophecy recommends that we cook our grains very well. So with our oats, these types of oats should probably cook for about 20 to 30 minutes so that they are well cooked and healthy for our digestive system.
Here I'm just adding a little bit of salt. When you cook oats, if you don't add salt, they can sometimes have a bit of a sour or a bitter or kind of a very flat taste. So it's just a touch of salt. You don't want it to be salty. You just want to bring out the flavor of the oats. And so just a tad of salt, and you can always add a little bit more if it's not quite enough, but you just don't want to add too much. All right, so oats have lots of fiber, they give you good energy, and it's a great breakfast meal, especially if it's a little bit cooler in the temperature. When we think about chia, you can see that it's starting to thicken up a little bit, and the chia is starting to gel, so that's really a nice consistency that we're getting right there. You want it to stir it up after about 5 or 10 minutes, because the chia seeds will gel and create a thick coating at the bottom, and you don't want it to get too hard, otherwise you can get lumpy chia. So just stir it up, make sure that everything is stirred up, and that you can actually then let it sit again for another 10 to 15 minutes. Chia is great because it has a lot of fiber in it. It's got omega-3 fatty acids. It's got a lot of protein, and with the coconut milk, you have a nice healthy fat. So it really makes an all-round super healthy breakfast that's going to satisfy you. And if you add nuts and seeds, like here we're adding sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds, then it really gives you a lot of nutrition in a small package, so to speak. And it can keep you going for all day long. I tend to throw seeds in at any time in the process. If you don't like the consistency of chia, you can let the chia pudding set, and when it gets thick, then you can put it in the blender and blend it, and that gives it a nice smooth kind of creamy consistency, and then you can add your nuts in after that. But if you want to eat it just like it is, then you can just throw the nuts in at any time and the seeds in, and it'll give you it just sits in there in the mix.
And pumpkin seeds are a wonderful addition as well. Both nuts or seeds that you add in here would be a great added source of protein and fiber.
So I'm just adding a little bit more chia seed because it looks to me like it's not getting quite as thick as I would like. And I know I'm going to put more water in there. So I've just thrown a bit more chia seed in there just to thicken it up a little bit. And I'm just stirring those seeds in.
So let's just check on our lentil stew again. Hopefully the water is boiling enough that we can add the lentils in. So let's take a look. Okay, so usually I will add some garlic, and I usually add the garlic later on in the cooking stage. You just take some garlic, you peel it, you chop it to the size that you want, and add it to the later stages of cooking to bring out more garlic flavor. We don't have any raw garlic with us today, so we're going to add some garlic powder. And you just put in an amount according to the amount of lentils that you're cooking. Stir it into the water so that it gets blended first. And then we're going to go ahead and add our rinsed lentils. So we're going to add them all into our pot. Make sure we get all of them in there. I'm going to just scrape down the sides of the bowl to make sure that I get all the lentils in there. All right, so once all the lentils are in there, I'm going to go ahead and give it a stir. There's quite a few lentils in here, so we want to make sure that nothing's going to stick to the bottom and that the water and the juices from the sauce are going to mix in there. And then once it's stirred, I'm going to cover it again with the lid, reduce the heat, and let it cook for about 35 to 45 minutes. and I'm going to just keep checking on them to make sure that they don't stick and to make sure that it's well cooked. So that's it. That's all you need to do. You're going to stir it, make sure that it's well incorporated with the vegetables and the sauce. Now for the amount of lentils that we're cooking here, we're going to go ahead and add just a few more seasonings and stir it. And then we're going to cover it and let it cook.
As you can see, the oatmeal is starting to warm up and the chia pudding is starting to get thicker. So it looks really thick. When it thickens up, actually, you should be able to stand the spoon up in it. And that's quite a thick consistency. So if it gets to that point, you simply just add a little bit extra water and you can get it back to the consistency you want. So some people like it really thick and almost you got to carve it out. Some people like it fairly runny. And so it just depends on what you like for consistency, and you can add water or add chia to get to the consistency that you would like to have. So as you can see, I've added a little bit more water and now it's a little bit more runny again. But you don't have to worry about that because it's still continuing to gel, and so it will get thicker as time goes on. If you like to add a little bit of sweetener, you can add honey as a sweetener if you want to do a natural sweetener. I am adding honey here just because we don't have anything else. In the past, I've also mixed dates. So you can take dates, make sure you take the pit out, but then you put the dates in a blender with some hot water, and then you blend that together, and then you just can continue to add water till you get to a consistency that you can pour. And then you just pour that into the mix, and you've got a nice natural sweetener, an alternative to honey if you don't want to use honey. But if you want to use honey, you can just pour the honey in there and mix it in, and it gives it a really nice sweetness to it. So as you can see, it's still a little bit watery, but over time it's going to get thicker. And as we continue to talk and as we continue to kind of do other things in the class and it sits, it's going to get thicker and get to a nice consistency. So here I'm just kind of describing that some people may not like the consistency of the seeds in their mouth, and so they can always just put it in a blender, blend it up, and make it into a nice creamy chia pudding. And at this point, we've got some chopped fruit that we've chopped. We've got some cut mangoes, some bananas, and some oranges that we've chopped. So I'm just going to throw those in. You can put them in right away and mix them, or once you've served it in individual bowls, you can always add it in like that. It really doesn't matter, just whatever an individual likes.
And keep in mind that you can add whatever fruits that you have, especially local fruits that are in season. So you have so many beautiful fruit trees around here. You can add guava, you can add papaya. Pretty much any fruit that you like can be added to this wonderful chia pudding.
And if you want to add fruit and you want to add nuts, as I've mentioned before, you can add them in anytime. But if you want to blend it up first, it's a good idea to just blend it up. I think, another option is you can change the flavoring of the whole chia pudding. You can take your mangoes, for instance, and you can blend them into a puree and then mix that puree into the chia pudding. It'll turn it orange or yellow, whatever color your mangoes are, but it'll actually give you a mango chia pudding instead of a chia pudding with mangoes cut into it. So there's a lot of options that you can do and a lot of variety that you can get just with the same fruits, just putting them in a different way. And so here we're just stirring in a few more seeds, adding a little bit more for texture and for thickness. And so it's really coming along quite nicely.
Oh, you can also, another fun idea that I've done before with the chia is if you leave it a little bit thicker, you can actually make a really healthy dessert. You can make something called a chia parfait, where you're layering some chia and then some fruit and some chia and some more fruit. You can have either the fruit pureed or you can have the fruit in chunks, and you can have this in these beautiful layers in a cup or in a bowl that's glass so that you can see the layers. And it's a fantastic dessert that you can serve that's healthy and guilt-free, or as a healthy breakfast as well. So a chia parfait is also a wonderful way to use your chia pudding, having it a little bit thicker. And now here we're going to go ahead and just check on the lentils. They're cooking nicely. They're starting to thicken. We're going to stir it and make sure that they're not sticking to the bottom. And you want to another thing that I usually like to add to my lentil stew is greens. So you can roughly chop up some greens, whatever greens that you have. So spinach or Swiss chard or kale, just chop them up, or even use some of the greens that you have around here locally. So whatever greens that you forage in your garden or in the forest, you can go ahead and use those. Whatever is local, whatever is fresh or in season, or whatever you have access to, just chop it up, add it towards the end of the cooking time so that it cooks with the rest of the lentils as it continues to cook. So those are a great addition for additional nutrition and antioxidants, and it's a fantastic thing to add to your lentil stew. Yes, so you can go ahead and add whatever. That's a great question. We can definitely add the greens that you forage in around the property or wherever you have local access to, and just add those in there, and they can be a wonderful addition.
You can see how the chia pudding is nicely thickening up. I can stand the spoon up into it, and it's just getting really nice and thick. So it's really at a nice consistency right there. That's the way I usually like to eat it. I'm going to add a little bit more water just to make the chia go a little bit further, and so we've got enough for everyone to have a taste. So I've just poured a little bit more water into the can from the coconut so that I actually mix with whatever coconut milk is left, and make sure to maximize using all that coconut milk. But then just stir it in. Make sure the water's nice and stirred into the chia, and then you've got a lovely mix to make. I do have to taste it and give it a taste and see how it tastes. Oh, that's so good. Yum. I just love chia pudding, and so especially when it's got mangoes in it, and it's got fruit and a little bit of honey, it's really a very pleasant flavor, and it's really balanced, and it tastes very nice. And I think you're going to be enjoying it as well as I do. You can also chop nuts and add in there as well, as we've mentioned. So there's a lot of things that you can make. And when I'm at home, I usually chop nuts into a jar, keep it in the fridge, and then I can just pour it in. I don't have to chop nuts every time. So you can chop them ahead of time and then just have them available to put into the mix.
So another tip is for an additional natural sweetener, you can add either dates or raisins to the chia or the oatmeal porridge, and it's a fantastic natural sweetener. Now, whether you blend it and puree it so that it can be mixed into it and hardly noticeable, or you can just chop them, roughly chop some dates without the pit, or even just put in whole raisins, and you can add them, and it's a fantastic natural sweetener that's going to give you some additional iron and fiber and just overall wonderful nutrition and a fantastic flavor without adding any other type of sweetener. So you can go ahead and just be creative, decide which one you prefer. That's a fantastic addition to either your chia or your oatmeal porridge.
So I'm just describing here how it's important to keep your work area clean. So kids, if you're in the kitchen, or even adults, Make sure to clean up your area as you go along. I'm generally quite a lazy person, so I clean up as I go, and then when I'm finished, there's nothing to clean up. It's already done when I'm done, and so I don't have a big mess on my hands to clean up afterwards. So just keep a wet rag handy. If you spill something, wipe it up right away, and then you'll have a nice clean workspace. So as we look at the chia, you can see it's continuing to thicken even though we've put plenty of water in there, and it's just getting nice and thick.
Now let's take a look at our chia, at our lentil stew. Look at that. The lentils are starting to thicken and absorb the water. You can see how much water they've already absorbed, and it's starting to be quite nice. You just have to make sure that you keep stirring it so nothing sticks to the bottom, and make sure that you go with your spoon right around the edge of it and right to the bottom, stirring it to make sure that the seasonings have really melded, and make sure that it's going well. And this one seems to be going very well. We are going to add just a little bit more water because the lentils have absorbed it quite well. And we're going to stir that water in, making sure again that we have it well distributed throughout the stew. And it looks like it's coming along quite nicely. So we're going to go ahead and cover it with the lid so that it can continue slowly cooking. And we're about, like I said, about 35 to 45 minutes, as long as the lentils have softened enough and that your carrots are well cooked, or al dente. Either way, it'll make a delicious stew.
So as you can see, the oatmeal is starting to warm up. I'm just stirring it. You got to be careful with oatmeal too, because oatmeal can stick to the bottom and can burn quite quickly.
You can also, if you want the oatmeal to be a little creamier, you can blend them. You can blend the oat porridge and actually make it a lot smoother and creamier. But as long as you cook your oats well, your body will be able to digest it just fine. It'll be fantastic fiber and amazing nutrients for your body and for good bowel movements.
As you can see, I like honey, so we've put honey in here to sweeten the oatmeal a little bit. As I said before, you put a little bit of salt so it doesn't taste bitter, but it's nice to have a little bit of a sweetener in there if you like that. And again, I've used honey since we do have limited options, but you can see the oatmeal is thickening up, and I'm just gonna have a taste. It's important to taste the food before you serve it to other people. And so I like to taste it, make sure that it's sweet enough or that it's not too sweet, or if there's anything I need to add. So here we are adding a little bit more salt just to bring out the flavor. It doesn't need a lot, even though it's a big pot. It just takes a little bit, and it just really brings out the flavor quite nicely. So we'll stir that all in, make sure that it's nicely mixed.
Now, it might seem like we're putting too much salt, but really it doesn't. For the amount of oats that are in here, just a little salt brings out the flavor quite nicely.
So yeah, you just want to make sure that your flavors are nicely balanced and between the sweet and the salty, and that will give it a really, really nice flavor. So again, it's important to put just a little bit in at a time, because if you over salt things or you over flavor or season them, then it's really hard to get back. You've got to add a lot of water. You've got to then you're in a kind of a war of balancing flavors. So just add a little bit of a time. If you need to add more, you can always add more salt or more seasonings.
Okay, so as you can see, whether it's seasonings or whether it's additional items that we add in, you can do it to taste, and it's pretty much a personal decision. whether it's sweetener or salt. But anyway, we're pretty much done here. We're just waiting a few more minutes for the lentil stew to finish cooking. Any questions? Because please do ask, because it's a wonderful opportunity to learn. And you can go ahead and ask any questions that you may have. Chia is a fantastic thing. The chia pudding idea is a fantastic thing to make ahead of time, especially for a Sabbath breakfast. So you can prepare the chia the evening before if you have a refrigerator, and you can go ahead and prepare it, not with the fruits added to them. Keep the fruits chopped already separately, and then you can add them on Sabbath morning. So you just basically stir your chia pudding, and then you can either put your cut up fruits on top and mix them right into the chia pudding, or just serve them on top or on the side. And it's fantastic. It won't ferment. It won't be creating any kind of fermentation or anything. So you can keep them separately and just add them on the morning of.
Yeah, so if you add the fruits into the chia, they should be fine to keep in the fridge overnight. You don't have to worry about them fermenting in the chia pudding. If you're going to keep it for days, then it's going to go bad in 3 or 4 days, especially if it's not very cold. But if you can add them in, and or you can blend them up, and that works as well. So the fruit works really well. Or if you want to just cut it separately and keep them separate, and then just add them when you eat it.
Okay, so we're just going to check on our lentil stew. Seems to be coming along quite nicely. We're going to give it a nice stir. Now look at that consistency. You see how beautiful that is? And such a wonderful smell. Making sure that we're stirring it so that nothing sticks to the bottom. And because we're making this stew with no oil, we want to make sure that we're stirring it every once in a while to make sure that things are going well. But it looks like it's cooking up really nicely.
The oatmeal is coming along nicely as well, so I just walked over to stir that up, and just to make sure it's not sticking at the bottom. So you just really want to check and keep an eye on it, because it can actually go quite quickly, especially with the milk in there. With the coconut milk, it's not so bad, because the coconut milk has a nice fat. So here we've taken the oatmeal off the stove. Generally, you need to cook it 10-15 minutes on the stove. You don't want to overboil it, but you can take it off and just let it sit for another 15 minutes, because the oats will actually continue to cook in the heat. And so I've added a bit of water there just to thin it out a little bit, and then we're just going to let it sit. And actually, the oats maintain a lot of heat as well, so they'll stay hot for quite a while.
And you're going to notice that the texture of our oatmeal porridge is quite different than the oatmeal porridge or the porridge that you serve here. The porridge that you serve here is quite liquidy. That's something that was quite surprising for me to see. So as you can see, our oatmeal, our porridge is a lot thicker. We like it that way. So you can put it in, and you can put as much liquid as you like, but we like it quite thick so that when you pour it in a bowl, it's nice and thick, and then you can add some fruits right to the top of it, either stirred in or right to the top of it. And you can add some nuts or seeds or anything else that you like to add some additional nutrition and just a wonderful flavor to your oatmeal porridge.
So it's important that that you cover the oatmeal too. We didn't have a lid here, but if you don't cover it, the oatmeal will often develop a skin on top that's kind of, it's not the nicest. So if you cook it, once it starts boiling in the water, you turn the heat down to low, cover it, and then let it just kind of simmer for 10-15 minutes. Then you just have to take it off the heat and let it sit with the lid on, and it will continue to cook, and you'll have a nice consistency with your oatmeal.
So now let me just check on the lentil stew, and we're going to take some aside just so that we can test for salt. And we're going to just stir it again. It looks like it's coming along quite nicely. Michael, can you please taste it for salt?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So let's, there we go. So just giving that a taste and tastes like we could add just a little bit more salt to it. So we throw a bit of salt in there. It looks like we're throwing a lot of salt, but we're not really because it's such a big pot and there's quite a bit of water in there. And the lentils also need some salt to flavor them as well. So we just put some more salt in there. We'll stir that in, let it simmer a little bit more, and let the salt go in.
And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more of the garlic powder as well, because we're not just cooking, usually we make about 1 kilo of lentils to make the stew, but here we have 3 kilos. So we're going to make sure that the seasonings are balanced and add a little bit more.
It looks like everything is pretty close to done. So we've been able to make the oatmeal. Now the lentils, we're just testing for salt. We're kind of in the final stages with that. And so I'm just doing some taste testing and getting a sense of how much salt is in there and if we need to add more and how the taste is. And also I'm tasting the lentils to make sure that they're cooked as well.
And I think Michael really enjoys the tasting part for sure.
I sure do. I sure do. I love it. So it's really nice. And again, like I said, we add a little bit of salt at a time, so we don't want to over salt it, but we can always just add a bit more to bring up the saltiness.
Okay, so the texture of the lentil stew looks like it's coming along quite nicely. Give it one final little stir here, and we'll just cover it with the lid.
Yeah, so it's pretty well done. So we're just trying to figure out how to take it off the heat here without burning ourselves. And so we're going to take it off the heat and set it down on the floor because it's quite hot, and turn off the burner is quite hot as well. So the lentils are done, everything's done, and so we're just going to turn off the heat here and make sure that we can do it that safely.
Okay, we'll just give it one final stir. And what a beautiful stew. An oil-free red lentil stew.
As you can see, even off the heat, the lentils continue to cook, so they're going to stay hot for quite a while.
Okay, so as you can see, the lentils are fantastic. Any legumes are fantastic. And because these are without the skin, you don't really need to soak them in advance. That's a great question. So what we usually do with any legumes is that we soak them. We put the amount of the legumes, whether it's beans or chickpeas or whatever, or lentils with the skin, you're going to go ahead and put them in a bowl, in some sort of a container, and then you're going to fill it with enough water to cover. So if you put about this much of the beans or legumes, you want to make sure that you put at least 2 to 3 times the amount of water. And then you're going to let those soak. I usually let my legumes soak for about 24 hours. So you can either put them to soak in the morning, allow them to soak all day long, and then you're going to drain and rinse all of that water out. You're going to wash the soaked legumes, and you're going to drain that water once again, and then put some fresh water back into it so that it can soak overnight. And then in the morning, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to make sure that you're going to drain that water, that soaking water, rinse the legumes, drain that water again. What we're in essence doing is making sure that we're removing any anti-nutrients that are found in the skins so that they don't give you any digestive problems, any bloating or flatulence that often come with eating legumes. And a lot of people have trouble digesting because they haven't soaked them long enough. So you want to make sure that you soak your legumes, your dry legumes, for at least 24 hours or even more. And then you basically can cook them And that way you're not going to have any digestive or tummy issues with eating those.
All right, looks like we've got everything done. We're going to cover the lentils and just make sure that they stay nice and warm.
Okay, so we're just going to invite everyone to go on over to our lunch area, and we're going to be very happy to serve you the 3 dishes that we've made. Bon appétit!
Thanks a lot.